All right, so there's go bags or bug out bags that are supposed to be for if your safe place is no longer safe and you have to start moving. You've also got your get home bag, and that's usually something small enough to carry, basically a woman's purse, everything that you need to get home. As I've been watching these, there's a lot of stuff that I've been talking about, like people who are homeless having a different experience. A lot of these folks, they get these go bags, and they put them all together and they go out and they're like, all right, well, it's a 72-hour bag, so everything in there is supposed to last me for 72 hours. Well, anything you can pick up or harvest along the way that makes it so that you don't have to use a lot of those supplies is a good way to go. But I understand if you got to keep on moving quickly, you can't necessarily stop, or you don't necessarily have what you are looking for handy when you're marching through. There might not always be blackberries when you're hungry. Um, a lot of these guys, they had these wonderful ideas about their bug out bags, and some of them got pre-prepared bug out bags. Stuff that you get on uh, what do they call it, Etsy or eBay or whatever, and it's somebody's put this together at a tactical shop or something. You you tear into it while you're out there, and you realize it's what do you need that many gauze pads for, right? Or they realize that their water purification tablets expired in 2008, and then they're afraid to use them, or things of that nature. There's also a lot of stuff where they pull out, like God, that itches. One guy pulled out his sewing kit, and as he's starting to sew with it, his thread keeps breaking. Well, that's one of them tricks I was telling you about with the dental floss. I think what he eventually did was try to use fishing line or something, which he had quite an overabundance of. But his biggest complaint in one of these videos, well, in most of these videos, is the weight. Like a lot of these guys, they go, all right, I got it down to a decent size. A decent size for on your back walking around a lap around the living room is completely different from once you've got terrain that you've got to advance over that's at an angle. You're also having to duck and maneuver and move because sticks and branches didn't go, all right, well, you're going to go walking through here, so we'll just not grow in that area. Nope, that's not how trees grow. That's not how bushes grow, just not how it grows. So most of these guys that are not homeless, they're one of these guys, the one that I'm going to be talking about the most. I've been following him just because he had these great ideas about a bug out bag, and I tore his thing to shreds. I was like, man, that is the most podunk thing. And then I realized there was a continuation where he was testing it out. And when he tested it out, he caught about half of the stuff that I told him was trash. And the other half was, or that I said was trash. I didn't tell him that. It's not like I get to have a face to face conversation with him. But the other half of the stuff that he had was stuff that he just didn't use. Now, in his mind, he's thinking that because he didn't use it, that it's not something that he would. There is some weighted stuff that's on that pack that, like his hatchet, he never uses his hatchet. And there's probably 10 different occasions where he screws up with some of his other stuff where that hatchet is the first thing he should have had handy. Also, when it comes to the tarp that he used for a tent, it was perfect. The problem was that he didn't understand how him setting it up. Let me show you how he did it. All right. He, I guess this will work. He had one of them silver blankets, the cheap survival blankets. And then he had some of that 7 mil stuff, the 7 mil thick plastic sheeting. And he grabbed it by all 4 corners, right? And he, tarped it down like he was supposed to. But he set the ridge line, the center line where the rain's going to fall on either side of it, on a log that was at quite an angle. So even though most of the rain is hitting the outside of it and it's going the way that he wants it to, it's also very open, and there's a lot of the rain that's hitting this big long log that's streaming down and getting underneath the tarp and then dripping the whole way down. So right down the center of his dry spot is a friggin' strip of wetness. One way that he could have easily cured that is with a sock. If you don't want to waste your socks, but in a situation like that where you've already got it set up, it's already getting dark, it's already rainy, you just want to get under there. Yeah, rather have one wet sock than be completely soaked in the morning. You did all that work and spent all them calories. You might as well just use the sock, get it done and over with. At least in the morning, you won't be soaked. By the way, you can die of hypothermia in the middle of the summer at night during a rainstorm easily. The guy that I'm watching now, he's trying out his second go bag, I believe. It says Bug Out Bag 2018 Contents and Thoughts. This guy, he goes by survival theory, and he's not the one that's in most of the things that I'm talking about. This guy right here is another one of the ones where there's like 6 or 7 of them where they have these great ideas about their bug out bags. They made a video where they're testing it out, and most of them don't know what they're doing. A lot of the stuff that these guys are saying is trash and doesn't belong in the kit. First of all, it's that they didn't know how to use it or didn't think to use it. And you can see the complications in their lives. Like the dude with the hatchet, it really does complicate the crap out of things where he's trying to take a rock and smack it against another rock with something he's trying to break in between. I'm like, you have a hatchet. Or he's trying to cut through something that's completely waterlogged with this saw that he's got. And it's waterlogged, it's dry now, but it's waterlogged to the point that it's basically a sponge. 2 fucking whacks with a hatchet, one on each side, and that thing falls right apart. It's lightweight. I mean, when he was picking it up, I was looking at it. I'm like, I used to live in Washington State. I know what that wood looks like. I know what it feels like. I know all about it. Um, that's a lot of the issue with trying to teach people about autism or about homelessness. They all think that they know better than we do. Everybody thinks they know better than the person living it. So much so that they don't listen to the person living it. They say they care, they just don't care to listen. What they care to do is tell you how to think and feel. And when they encounter a situation like that, that's not how they think or feel. Now, one of these guys on his get home bag, because he lives up in the mountains, he does have an AR-15 strapped to it. And y'all know my opinion on that. Don't do it, it'll get you shot. Up in the mountains, you can kind of sort of get away with it, but also you better be familiar to the people in the territory. If, like, let's say you're in Nederland, if everybody in town knew who you were and you were known for hunting and you were a gun dude and maybe there was a wild animal in the area or something, I could see where they would, understand you walking through the area with a firearm. If it's hunting season, I can kind of understand it then too. Um, in the case of a serious survival situation where you're trying to get home, that will get you targeted just because you're carrying it. Once you've got your go bag or your bug out bag, that's where if you do need a rifle, that's where it would be. It's not something where you're the idea of a get home bag. If you're able to have this big, huge frame pack, right, with an M16 strapped to the side and or an AR-15 strapped to the side. You've got all of this stuff that makes you look like you're geared up for World War III and you're carrying 4 people worth of shit. Like, yeah, dude, that's kind of counterproductive because now you're prepared for every situation, but you can't carry the beast. You're gonna walk into your office building with that. Is that thing gonna be more of a help or more of a hindrance? And when you're looking at weight, you're looking at hindrance. The more weight you add to it, the more useless shit that you put on there. There's some multi-use tools that, well, as much as I don't want to admit this, coat hangers are the shit. Coat hangers are extremely good tools. You can use them for replacing a lot of tools if you understand how to bend it. I've actually had to use a coat hanger to get bolts off because I didn't have a crescent wrench. And it's not easy, and you got to do a lot of bending, and you got to, but once you got it figured out, you got it figured out. Let me guess, is that somebody calling from a restricted number? Yep, how did I know? Always restricted. That does make things complicated. All I wanted is to be left alone. Not to have my entire life torn out from underneath me. And then they pretend to leave me alone. No, my life is fucking destroyed. Because all my friends are fucking idiots. All of them. None of them stopped to put themselves in my shoes. They were all too busy telling me what to do, what to think, what to feel, making empty promises about how they'll help me. And then I spend all of the resources that I have believing their empty fucking words. And then when it comes time to keep their word, it's another fucking excuse every goddamn time. And some of these people, I get that, yeah, maybe their families were sick. But there's also the fact that most of you learn that if you do something fucked up and it affects somebody else's life that greatly and they're going through hell, you can just make one of those sob story excuses. But the other thing is, if you, after 6 months, and I am fucking frustrated, and you're going to tell me that it's because your mom's got cancer and you just found out last month, and that's the reason that you haven't fucking come forward in a whole bunch of months. And then I find out that your mom doesn't have cancer, that you fucking lied to me straight out. Maybe you should have thought about the fact that I know your mom before you told me she had cancer. But that's just one specific story of somebody that I knew in person. I'm also having to deal with the goddamn web weak nuts. I'm trying to get help, but everybody keeps blowing me off for saying I can't or I'm fucking sorry. You see what happens when I go to these government agencies. They're not going to help me unless family goes in with me. My family doesn't give a fuck. My family is a bunch of child molesters, rapists, and fucking drug dealers. I don't have anything in common with them. With a lot of these guys, they're going out and they're testing being homeless for a couple of days. Big fucking difference. Big fucking difference between being stuck out there and, you know, the first few nights you're out there, you might not be as afraid of the cops as you should be. But the first time they come and harass you for your fucking backpack, yeah, game on. Life is about to get real fucking rough. The only protection that you have is other homeless people. And even they're too cowardly to speak up. But each and every one of them wants you to speak up when something fucked up happens to them. Imagine that. Of course, I speak up when it happens to them, but they don't speak up when it happens to me. A lot of people were speaking up at the very beginning. But with me being cut off from being able to travel, being able to communicate, being able to do any of that, Like, I couldn't talk to these people. I couldn't call them. A lot of those folks that I had their phone numbers, having phones fucking lost and stolen takes away their numbers from me. Being cut off from Facebook because people wanna fucking pretend I'm some sort of villain. That makes me a fucking target. And each and every one of these fucking places hides behind the fact that it's not their fault. No, it is their fault. I'm being abused. I cannot take care of myself. I don't want to live because I have no loved ones in person. None. These guys here, they keep asking me, well, why don't you have that dude that you're staying with do it? Why don't you have him help you? Why don't you have him help you? Because every time I ask him, he literally will not make an effort. He tells me about how depressed he is. And he's allowed to be depressed, and I'm not. See, that's where most of your ideas that you keep wanting to shove at me are fucking stupid. It's like these guys with their fucking go bags and their get home packs. The reality of the situation is a lot different once you've fucking experienced it. It's one thing to go, all right, that plastic bag is waterproof. And it's another thing entirely to try to live in that trash bag and not get wet. My entire life, predators have been allowed to do whatever they want to, no matter what. They just call me mentally ill and it's fine. You don't want to pay me as much as somebody else because I'm different? That's not my choice, but I'm getting paid less. Look at how much less disabled people get paid. Look at how much less homeless people get paid. I mean, shit, we're trying to pick up entry level jobs, and even then, it's difficult to keep the hygiene up well enough to do that. People always got this cop out. You're like, oh, well, there's services, bitch. If you've never gone to get them services, you got no fucking clue. I made hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of phone calls. I need help in person. I cannot take care of myself. I can't take care of myself. Oh, that was proper goddamn English.